It's too damn late to be on the road. My body's aching, my head's pounding, and I can still hear the echoes of the courtroom in my mind. Gavel slams, objections, the low murmur of people whispering when they think I can't hear them. Another long day of deciding fates, of sifting through the lies and the half-truths, of watching people beg for mercy they may or may not deserve. Now all I want is to go home. The city's still alive at this hour, but it's quieter. Streetlights flicker on empty sidewalks. The occasional pedestrian shuffles along, hood up, hands buried deep in their pockets. I take a slow breath, easing my grip on the wheel of my black Mercedes S-Class, letting the hum of the engine settle my nerves. This car, this suit, this life, I earned it. No handouts, no favors, just years of grinding, fighting for every inch of respect. And then I see them. Blue and red lights explode in my rearview mirror, slicing through the night. I know what this is before it even happens. I know it the way you know rain's coming when the air gets thick and heavy. I check my speed. 35 in a 35. My signals were used. No swerving. No violations. No reason. And yet, here we are. I pull over, rolling down my window, keeping both hands on the wheel. Experience has taught me that anything else is a gamble. I watch in the side mirror as the officer steps out of his cruiser, his boots crunching on the pavement. His white mid-30s buzz cut. The way he moves, the way his hand rests just inches from his holster, tells me everything I need to know. This isn't about a traffic stop. This is about something deeper, something uglier. The officer leans down, flashlight already in my face. License and registration. No greeting, no explanation. Just a command, sharp and clipped. I keep my tone even. May I ask why I'm being stopped, officer? His lips twitch. License and registration. I exhale through my nose, slow and measured. I know this game. He's waiting for resistance, waiting for an excuse to escalate. Not tonight. I move deliberately, reaching into the glove compartment for my registration while fishing my wallet from my inner coat pocket. My fingers brush against my badge. Not yet. I hand him the documents, watching as his eyes flicker between my license and me. His jaw tightens. This your car? I suppress a bitter laugh. Yes, sir. It is. He doesn't like my tone. Or maybe he doesn't like the fact that I'm too calm, too sure. He straightens up slightly, looking over the sleek interior, the polished wood trim, the pristine leather seats. Where you coming from? I let the question hang for a second. Work. And where's that? I tilt my head slightly, studying him the same way he's studying me. Downtown. His jaw shifts. He's fishing, looking for cracks, looking for something, anything that doesn't fit the picture in his head. I decide to push back just a little. Officer, is there a reason I was pulled over? His nostrils flare. I'll ask the questions. I smile. Small, barely there, but enough. And I'll need your badge number. That gets him. A flicker of hesitation in his eyes. A split-second shift in his stance. He wasn't expecting that. Excuse me? I nod toward his chest. Your badge number. And your name. My voice is steady, unshaken. I've spent years controlling rooms filled with killers, liars, and desperate men. One officer with a badge and a flashlight doesn't shake me. He stares at me, his fingers flexing at his side. Sir, I need you to cooperate. Oh, I am. Fully. I lean slightly toward him, lowering my voice just enough to force him to really listen. But see, the thing is, I know my rights, and I know that you need probable cause to pull me over. And unless you can articulate exactly what that is, we might have a problem. The night air thickens between us. His pride's at war with his instinct. He wasn't expecting pushback, at least not like this. He was expecting fear, submission. I give him neither. Step out of the vehicle. His voice is tight now, strained. I don't move. On what grounds? You're obstructing an investigation. Investigation of what? I tilt my head again, watching the way his fingers twitch, the way his breathing changes. Because from where I'm sitting, this looks a lot like a baseless stop. And if that's the case, officer, you and I both know what that means. There it is. The shift. The flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. I take my time, reaching back into my jacket. His hand moves instantly to his holster, but I don't flinch. Instead, I pull out my leather case, flipping it open so he can see the gleaming gold emblem inside. United States District Judge. His face drains of color. Now we see how this ends. The night hangs still between us, thick with something unspoken. The moment my badge catches the light, the officer's entire demeanor shifts. It's subtle. His shoulders stiffen, his jaw clenches, his fingers twitch away from his holster. A man recalculating, reevaluating. I let the silence stretch, let him sit in it. He clears his throat. "Judge." His voice has lost its edge, softened into something uneasy, something wary. I snap the case shut and set it on the dash, where he can't ignore it. "That's right." My voice stays even controlled. "United States District Judge. And now that we've established that, I'll ask again. Why was I pulled over?" He swallows. His flashlight, still in his hand, shifts aimlessly, flickering along the dashboard like he's searching for an answer somewhere in the grain of the wood trim. He stops, resets. "Just a routine check, sir. Routine check." I let out a slow breath through my nose. The kind of breath that stops a man from saying something he'll regret. There it is, the excuse, the cover, the lie wrapped in official-sounding nonsense. He's hoping I'll let it slide, that I'll nod and accept it like so many others have. But I won't, because I know exactly what this is. A black man in a luxury car, late at night, wearing a tailored suit. That's the crime. That's the probable cause. I tilt my head, studying him the way I study defendants on the stand when I know they're about to dig themselves deeper. "Routine check," I repeat, letting the words sit between us like an accusation. He shifts on his feet. "Yes, sir." I tap a finger against the steering wheel. "So you run random stops on luxury vehicles? Or just the ones with black men behind the wheel?" His eyes flick to mine. There's something there. Panic, maybe, or the dawning realization that he stepped into the wrong kind of storm. "That's not." He stops, presses his lips into a hard line. "Sir, I was just doing my job." I nod, slow and deliberate. "Right? And your job includes stopping federal judges without cause." He doesn't answer. He doesn't have one. The power dynamic has shifted completely now, and we both know it. The same man who had barked orders at me moments ago, who had kept his hand inches from his weapon, is now standing there, struggling to hold eye contact. I decide to push further. Not for myself, because this isn't about me. It never was. "You see, officer?" I glance at his nameplate. "Carter." I let the name settle, personalizing the moment. I preside over cases involving constitutional rights, civil rights. I know exactly how these situations tend to go. "How many times have you done this tonight?" He stiffens. "Sir, how many times have you done this week?" "Nothing. Because if I were to request the body cam footage of your stops this month, what would I find?" A muscle jumps in his jaw. "I don't think that's necessary." I raise an eyebrow. "No? Because I think internal affairs might disagree." The way his breath hitches. It's small, barely noticeable, but I catch it. He knows I'm not bluffing. I lean forward slightly, just enough to make sure my next words land exactly where they need to. "Now, Officer Carter, I want you to think real hard about how you want this night to end. Because right now, you have two choices. You can either be the officer who made a bad call and owned up to it, or you can be the name on a formal complaint sitting on the desk of your chief by sunrise." His face tightens, and for a second, I wonder if his pride will win out. If he'll double down, try to salvage whatever authority he thinks he has left. But then, his shoulders drop. Just a fraction. The fight leaves his eyes. "No need for that, sir," he says, voice quieter now. I exhale, slow and steady. "Good." He shifts awkwardly, glancing toward his cruiser like he wants to be anywhere but here. "You're free to go." I shake my head. "That's not how this works." His brows pull together. "Sir." I tap my badge case again. "You don't get to dismiss me like I'm the one who did something wrong. You stopped me. You explain why." Silence. And then, finally, a muttered, "I shouldn't have pulled you over." It's not quite an apology, but it's close enough. I let the moment stretch just long enough to make sure it sticks. Then, with slow deliberation, I reach for my wallet, pull out a card, and hand it to him. "If you ever want to talk about proper procedure, my office is downtown." He takes the card, staring at it like it might burn his fingers. I start the engine, the low rumble filling the silence. "Good night, Officer Carter." He steps back, nods stiffly. "Good night, sir." As I pull away, I watch him in my rearview mirror. He stands there, still holding the card, still processing what just happened. And maybe, just maybe, the next time he sees a black man behind the wheel of a nice car, he'll think twice before flipping those lights on. I drive in silence, the weight of what just happened pressing against my chest like a slow, steady hand. The city moves past me in streaks of yellow streetlights and neon reflections, but my mind is still back there, parked on the side of the road under the watchful glare of blue and red. I should be used to this by now. I've spent my whole life navigating spaces where I wasn't expected to belong. Law school classrooms where I was the only black man in the lecture hall. Courtrooms where attorneys twice my age underestimated me until they realized I held the gavel. Banquets and fundraisers where people assumed I was part of the catering staff instead of the guest of honor. And yet, there's something about a police stop that strips away everything else. Every title, every accolade, every inch of respect I've clawed for. In that moment, I was just another black man in a nice car. Another name that could have easily become a hashtag if the wrong words had been said, if the wrong move had been made. I flex my fingers against the wheel, trying to shake the tension from them. Even after all these years, it still lingers. The road stretches ahead, empty now. My house isn't far, 10 minutes, maybe less, but I feel the exhaustion creeping into my bones. Not just the fatigue of a long day in court, but the exhaustion of always having to prove, to defend, to justify my own existence in spaces that should never have questioned it to begin with. The GPS voice murmurs something about my upcoming turn, but I barely register it. My mind drifts back to Officer Carter. He'll go home tonight, maybe shake off what happened, maybe push it to the back of his mind. He'll tell himself he was just doing his job. Maybe he'll even believe it. But I wonder if, when he lays in bed, he'll think about that moment. About the second he saw my badge, about the fear that flashed across his face when he realized who he had pulled over. Not fear of me, fear of the consequences, because that's how it always goes. Isn't it? They don't fear the harm they might cause. They fear the repercussions when the wrong person catches them in the act. I exhale slowly. Maybe I should have reported him anyway. Maybe I still will. The thought lingers as I pull up to my gated driveway, punching in the code with a practiced hand. The metal gates glide open, and I ease the Mercedes forward, letting the familiar sight of my home settle over me. The porch light is on. The house is still. I park, cutting the engine, but I don't move right away. Instead, I sit there, staring at my own reflection in the rearview mirror. My tie is slightly loosened, the first few buttons of my shirt undone. Somewhere between formal and undone, somewhere between control and exhaustion. I drag a hand down my face. Then I step out. The air is cooler here, quieter. No sirens, no headlights, no harsh voices demanding identification. Just the soft rustling of trees and the distant hum of the city beyond the hills. I climb the steps to the front door, unlocking it with a sigh that feels like I've been holding it in all night. Inside, the house is dark except for the faint glow of the kitchen light. I drop my keys on the counter, loosen my tie completely, and pour myself a drink. The first sip burns in a way that reminds me I'm still alive. I pull out my phone, scrolling through emails, court notifications, news alerts, then I hesitate. My thumb hovers over the contacts. A single call. That's all it would take to file a complaint, to put Officer Carter under scrutiny, to set something in motion that he'd never see coming. I should, but I don't. Not yet. Instead, I toss the phone onto the counter and take another sip. Tonight, I'll let the silence hold me. Tomorrow, we'll see. Sleep doesn't come easy. It never does on nights like this. I lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint ticking of the clock on the wall. The sheets are soft, the mattress firm, but my body feels restless, like it's still sitting in that car, still waiting for the next move, the next command, the next accusation. I close my eyes, but the moment replays itself in my mind, frame by frame. The glare of the flashlight, the suspicion in his voice, the way his fingers hovered near his gun, close enough to remind me how quickly things could have gone wrong. And then, his face when he saw my badge. That flicker of fear. That sudden realization. I should have pushed harder. Should have made the call. My eyes snap open. I reach for my phone, but before I can even unlock it, I hear something outside. A noise. Soft. Distant. I sit up, listening. Silence. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe it's just the remnants of tension still clinging to my bones, making me see ghosts where there are none. But then, there it is again. Faint rustling, a presence just beyond the edge of my awareness. I swing my legs over the bed, my heart already picking up speed. It's probably nothing. An animal. The wind. The paranoia of a man who just had a run-in with the law and can't quite shake the feeling that he's still being watched. Still, I move cautiously as I step toward the window, pushing aside the curtain just enough to peer outside. The street is empty. The driveway is still. But something feels off. I grab the Glock from my nightstand. It's not a habit born out of fear but out of understanding. I've lived long enough, seen enough, to know that power doesn't always protect you. Sometimes it makes you a target. Moving quietly, I make my way downstairs, every step slow and deliberate. The house is dark, but my eyes adjust quickly. I know this space, know the way the floors creak, know every shadow and corner. At the front door, I hesitate. Then another sound. This time, it's unmistakable. Footsteps. Close. I tighten my grip on the gun, steadying my breath. And then 3 knocks. Not the casual, absent-minded kind. Not the kind a neighbor might give or a friend dropping by unannounced. No, these are measured, deliberate. 3 precise raps against the wood, each one echoing through the quiet. Whoever's out there isn't lost. They came for me. I flick the safety off. Then, slowly, I unlock the door and open it just enough to see who's on the other side. And when I do, my pulse goes ice cold. Standing beneath the glow of the porch light, dressed in the same uniform, with the same wary expression, is Officer Carter. And he's alone. What the hell are you doing here? My voice is lower than I intend, rough with something I don't care to name. He doesn't answer right away. Instead, he shifts on his feet, hands at his sides, nowhere near his weapon. That alone unsettles me more than anything else. I need to talk to you, he says finally. His voice lacks the authority it held earlier. Now it just sounds tired. I don't move. You got a lot of nerve showing up at my house. He exhales, glancing around, as if checking to see if anyone's watching. Then, quieter. I know. Something about the way he says it, the way his eyes won't quite meet mine, makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I step outside, just enough to close the door behind me. The gun stays in my grip, hidden at my side. You should go, I say, keeping my voice even. He doesn't. Instead, he finally looks at me, and for the first time since meeting him, I see something I didn't expect. Not arrogance, not resentment, fear. Something has this man rattled. I think I messed up, he murmurs. I don't say anything, just let him talk. He swallows hard. After I let you go, I started thinking about it. Thinking about how that could have gone if you weren't. He stops, shakes his head. If you weren't who you are. I watch him, expression unreadable. I ran your plates before I even walked up to your car, he admits. Saw the name. Should have put it together then. But I didn't, because I wasn't looking for a judge. His voice tightens. I was looking for a problem. I let that sit between us. He laughs, but it's hollow. Funny thing is, when I got back to the station, I couldn't stop thinking about it. About how many times I've done that to guys who didn't have a badge to flash in my face. He exhales, running a hand over his buzzed head. And you were right. If you pulled my body cam footage, it wouldn't look good. Not just tonight. Other nights, too. I don't move, don't react. Just watch him unravel thread by thread. What are you expecting me to do about this? I ask finally. His throat bobs. I don't know. He looks away. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. I study him. Are you looking for absolution, Officer Carter? A pause. Then, I think I'm looking for a way out. That catches me off guard. A way out. I echo. His fingers twitch. Of all of it. His jaw clenches. This job, this whole damn system. You think I don't know what I am? What I've been. His voice dips, and I catch the edge of something sharp. Something broken. I wasn't always like this, but it's easy, you know? Easy to slip into a pattern. Easy to follow orders. Easy to stop seeing people as people. He looks up at me, and for the first time I see something I didn't expect. Regret. But tonight, he continues, I saw myself in a way I didn't like. I don't let him off the hook that easy. And that's enough for you? One bad feeling, and now you want to change. His nostrils flare. No, he admits. But it's a start. The weight of the night presses down on both of us. For a long moment, neither of us speaks. Then I do something I didn't expect. I step aside. Come inside. His brows pull together. What? You want to talk? I gesture toward the door. Then let's talk. He hesitates, but then slowly he steps forward. As the door closes behind us, I can't help but wonder, is this man worth saving? Or is this just another mistake waiting to happen? I lead him into the living room, my footsteps slow, deliberate. Carter hesitates at the threshold like he's crossing into forbidden territory. Like stepping inside a black man's house after a stop like that rewrites something in his head. Maybe it does. I don't offer him a seat. I don't offer him a drink. I just stand there, arms crossed, waiting. Talk. He exhales sharply, dragging a hand over his jaw. His fingers are shaking, just slightly. I notice. I don't even know where to start, he mutters. Start with why the hell you're at my door in the middle of the night. His lips press together. For a moment, I think he'll back out, make an excuse, walk away. But then he looks up at me, and I see it. Not just fear. Guilt. I told you I messed up. His voice is low, but there's something raw underneath it. I wasn't lying. I've done stops like that before. Dozens, probably. His jaw tightens. No, probably. Definitely. I don't react. Just let him dig his own grave. He exhales. And I let myself believe it was justified. That it was about preventing crime. About being proactive. He barks out a hollow laugh. But if I was being honest, I'd have to admit it wasn't about any of that. It was about control. There it is. I don't flinch, don't let my expression shift. But inside, something knots. Because he's not telling me anything I don't already know. You enjoyed it. I say, voice flat. His throat bobs. Yeah, he admits. I think I did. The air between us shifts. He's waiting for me to lash out, to explode, to kick him out. But I don't. Because this isn't about my anger. This is about the truth sitting between us. Ugly and undeniable. So why are you really here? Ask. He rubs the back of his neck. Because something broke tonight. I saw your badge. And suddenly, I saw myself. He swallows. I thought I was a good cop. But a good cop wouldn't have stopped you. A good cop wouldn't have needed to see a federal ID to back off. He shakes his head. And the worst part? I know I would have handled it differently if you were white. I know it. I can't pretend I don't. Silence. I let that settle. Let him sit with the weight of his confession. You want me to say something? I finally ask. He huffs. I don't know. Maybe. I watch him, studying the way he shifts under my gaze. You said you want out. Out of what? The job. His jaw clenches. Yeah. Why? His hands curl into fists. Because I don't like the person I've become. The answer comes fast, like he's been waiting to say it. Maybe even needing to. I step closer, lowering my voice. So let me get this straight. You've spent years patrolling these streets, pulling over men who look like me, justifying it with whatever lie you told yourself that day. And now one stop goes wrong for you. Just one. And suddenly you want to burn it all down. I tilt my head. What do you expect me to say? That you're forgiven? That you're different? His breath is sharp. No, I don't expect that. And I don't deserve it. I nod slowly. At least you know that much. Another silence stretches between us, thick as smoke. Then, what would you do? He asks suddenly. I raise an eyebrow. What? If you were me, he says, voice tight. If you woke up tomorrow knowing what I know about myself, what would you do? I study him for a long moment. Then, quietly, I'd start by telling the truth. He stiffens. To who? To everyone. He lets out a bitter laugh. That's career suicide. I shrug. Maybe, but it's the only way out that matters. He swallows hard. And if I did that, if I admitted what I've done, to my department, to my superiors, what do you think happens next? I give him the answer he already knows. They bury you. His shoulders sink. And for the first time tonight, I see it. Not just fear. Not just guilt. Resignation. He knows there's no easy redemption here. No quick fix. No pat on the back for realizing too late that he was part of the problem. So I don't offer him one. Instead, I step back, folding my arms. So what are you gonna do? He doesn't answer right away. But then, I don't know, he admits. But I think I just took the first step. Maybe. Or maybe this is just another moment that fades by morning. Either way, I'm not the one who has to live with it. He is. Carter stands there, shoulders slumped like a man carrying a weight he never expected to bear. The uniform he wore so confidently just hours ago seems tighter now. Suffocating. I watch him, measuring his words, his body language, the way his gaze keeps shifting like he's afraid of what he might see in my face. He came here looking for something. Absolution, guidance, maybe even permission to walk away from the life he built. I won't give him any of that. You're right about one thing, I say, finally breaking the silence. You did take the first step. But that doesn't mean a damn thing unless you take the next one. He exhales a slow, controlled breath. And what's that? I tilt my head. That's for you to decide. He lets out a bitter laugh. You really aren't going to make this easy, are you? I shake my head. Why should I? His jaw tightens, but there's no anger in his expression. Just something else. Something raw. I don't even know where to start, he admits. I lean back against the wall, crossing my arms. Then let me make it simple. You've got two choices. He looks up. One, you bury this. Go back to work. Pretend tonight never happened. Keep telling yourself you're just following orders, that it's not your fault. And maybe, for a while, you'll believe it. Maybe you'll convince yourself you're still a good cop. I pause. Until the next stop. Until the next black man looks at you the way I did tonight. And then you'll remember all over again. His throat bobs. And two, I hold his gaze. You stop running. His brows knit together. What do you mean? I push off the wall, stepping closer. You say you want out? Then get out. But don't just walk away quietly, Carter. You want to make this right? Expose it. Be the cop who finally stands up and tells the truth about how the system really works. I tilt my head. Or was all that talk about wanting to change just for show? He flinches, but he doesn't look away. That's suicide. He mutters, more to himself than to me. You don't just blow the whistle on your own department and walk away clean. No, you don't. I agree. So the question is, do you actually want to change? Or do you just want to feel better about yourself? That one lands. He takes a step back, raking a hand through his short hair. Jesus, he mutters. I didn't expect. What? That I wouldn't call you out? That I'd pat you on the back and say, good job for realizing you've been part of the problem? I shake my head. You came here looking for something. I hope to God it wasn't forgiveness. He exhales sharply. It wasn't. Good, I say, because that's not mine to give. Another silence. Then, quietly, he asks, what would happen if I did it? If you exposed them? He nods. I study him. Depends. Best case? You get out, leave the force, maybe make a career in something else. Worst case? I let the pause stretch. They destroy you. He swallows hard. We both know which is more likely. His hands tighten into fists. Damned either way. Welcome to the other side. I say dryly. He lets out another hollow laugh. But there's something else there now, something shifting behind his eyes. He's realizing it just like I did a long time ago. There's no justice without risk. Finally, he straightens. His expression hardens into something resolved. I need to think, he says. I nod. Do that. He turns toward the door, but just before stepping out, he hesitates. Then, without looking back, he says, for what it's worth, I'm sorry. I don't answer, because apologies don't fix anything. Action does. The door closes behind him, leaving me alone in the heavy silence. I let out a slow breath. Maybe he'll follow through. Maybe he won't. Either way, the verdict on his soul isn't mine to give. But I know one thing for sure. Tonight, for the first time, a cop saw himself for what he really was. And sometimes that's the first step towards something bigger, or the last step before the fall. If the story resonated with you, share it with those who need to hear it. Let's start conversations that matter and that will lead to change. Subscribe to our channel for more stories like this that challenge us, inspire us, and remind us of what we are capable of when we stand up for what is right.